Right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders, a great millstone, and peace and salutations to all you brothers out there teaching us word of truth and sincerity. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. You are the Hebrew Israelites, according to the Holy Bible, according to lineage and heritage. You are the heirs of our Lord Yahushai, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel. Okay, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And you so-called white people, you are the red Hebrew Edomite, known in the Bible as Esau, Edom. Okay, and this is from a website going off the back of what the brothers were saying. The elder Malcolma, the elder Malcolma said in his video, I didn't catch it, but I overheard our apostles speak on it in their most recent live stream on the Highways and Hedges. They mentioned that white people didn't come into existence until the late 1600s. So upon me hearing that, of course, I had to see it for myself. I had to find out. I had to look up my own research, and I came across this article, which was very well made. This article here, okay, and I haven't been able to verify the sources used in this article, but I don't have to. Okay, I got the scriptures, so I found some precepts to confirm everything that we've been saying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai regarding the so-called white man. And not only that, if any of you have gone to college and have taken sociology classes, a class on race, sociology of gender, you find out that those things are all what they would call social constructs. Social constructs. And a social construct is something that was created by society to make people believe that is real. And white people, that's a social construct made by the Edomites. Okay, because there's the white man that you weren't calling yourself a white man when you first were on the scene. You were calling yourself an Edomite. Because that was your name given unto you by your forefather. Okay, by the Spirit, you were named Esau, and your nation was called Edom. And you've been trying to run away from that identity, but the Spirit has it that we're confirming it now to you in your face on the highways and hedges, and here on these different mediums, such as the YouTube and uh, other other forms of social media that brothers use to push this word. Okay, so I'm gonna read this article. It's called "How White People Got Made." This is from a Medium corporation, Medium.com, called The Message. This is part 2 of a series on whiteness. Part 1, I didn't even read yet. Okay, I'm missing the spirit. Okay, so I'm gonna read this article and go into the scriptures and go into what's happening right now as we speak. It says when Africans arrived in Virginia in 1619, there were no white people there, nor, according to colonial records, will there be for another 60 years. An Edomite said that. So, wait, how did Africans get to Virginia in 1619? Wasn't there white people bringing them there? What about Jamestown? I thought those were white people. Well, they weren't even calling themselves white back then. Okay? That wasn't even socially constructed yet. This is another quote here by Chris Rock. It says, "There's nothing that a white man with a penny hates more than a nigga with a nickel." And that's very true. Okay? They pitted Esau, the white man, against Israel, the so-called black man. There's a perception that whiteness is working for white people. It's not. Whiteness is one of the biggest and most long-running scams ever perpetuated. That's right. It's a scam. Just like everything you so-called white people have created is a goddamn scam. Everything. This is Psalms 58:1. It says, "Do ye indeed speak righteousness, O congregation? Do ye judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? Yea, in heart ye work wickedness. Ye weigh the violence in your you weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies." And who's that could be speaking of? That's talking about you so-called white people, you Edomites. Okay? You're actually the ones pushing out these lies to everybody. Okay? And this article is going to go into it. The wicked are estranged from the womb. So as soon as you be born, they go astray as soon as they be born. So as soon as you're born, you're adhering to the words of the Heavenly Father. Okay? You don't want to fulfill the will of the Heavenly Father unless it's on the left hand side. The wicked are estranged from the womb; they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. And this article confirms that. It started in the late 1600s in America, but like so many scams, it spiraled out of control until it had a life of its own. Well, let me put some a little bit of tunes here. Get some soothing spirit. This is not long after Europeans started arriving on the east coast of North Africa and the Caribbean islands. They found themselves in rich in land, but desperate for labor to work the land. So, in other words, when so-called white man, you red Hebrew Edomites, you came to North America, you came to the islands, you stole everything. You killed all the Ephraimites, the Simeonites, the Manassites, the Reubenites, the Gadites. You started killing them and taking their lands, and you started owning that land. But you had no one to work the land because you completely wiped out the native peoples. And the native peoples, they didn't want to work for you, man. They were hardcore. All right? They fought against you hardcore, and not only that, the ones that did work for you that you had in slavery, they started dying off, man, because they couldn't handle that hell that you were putting on them. The answer they struck up upon was importation of bond labor. Initially, mostly Irish, and we've always spoken on the Irish people that they're Israelites. Okay. St. Patrick, being a black man, he went up there and brought in Israel. That land, that island is called Hibernia, which is another way of saying Hebrew. So it's a known fact that the original Irish people, they go back to the Israelites, so-called black people. The Irish have not been considered fully human under English law for centuries. Why was that? Because they were very Jakish, so to speak. And they ended up in plantations and working sugar under the Caribbean sun. The easy part of importing Irish and Scottish slave labor was that they were right next to England. The downside is there wasn't enough of them for the amazing amounts of land laid before the eager English settlers, and thus the Atlantic slave trade with Africa was born. This is a story we hear in school, but the abridged version we get, intentionally or not, hides the scam of it. Initially, the bond terms of convict Scotch-Irish, and the Scottish are so-called black people as well. The original Scots, the word Scot meaning black. Okay, there's a reason why you were taking Scots and Irish, because they're so-called black people. They're Irish, they're Israelites, okay? Although they had a lighter hue and they had different genetic variations because of their history from those that were taken from West Africa. Initially, the bond terms of convict Scotch-Irish and African labor was set a period of time, at the end of which they received bond money, indentured servitude, and their freedom in this new land. In fact, not that many bondsmen and women lived to be free, but some did and established themselves as mixed race, free peasantry of the New World. Whoa. They're mixed race. Why are they mixed race? Because they're Scotch and they're Irish, okay? That makes them mixed race. Meaning they have a lot of blood in them from so-called white people and those of Israel. Edomite and Israelite blood. If you've ever wondered where the free blacks of so many stories of early America came from, a large number were the families of freed African bond laborers. As time went on, labor needs of the landholders continued to grow, and desperate to cultivate the land, they were loath to let go of their bond servants and the bondsmen and the bondswomen and bonds children, whom they kept in bondage for a legally defined time as well. In the meantime, a growing American peasantry was proving as difficult to govern as the European peasantry back home, periodically rising up in riot and rebellion, light-skinned and dark-skinned together. So this is before you Edomites started calling yourselves white. There was a social class, okay? The people that were governing were all Edomites, but they had the peasantry of America now. It was a mixture of light-skinned and dark-skinned people. Right? Because you actually had the Irish guys, Irish woman, right? Scottish men, Scottish women. They were getting down with the freed African bondmen. And they're getting down with the Gadites. So it was a big a mixture of so-called different types of people, but they're all Israelites, okay? And there was also a bunch of poor-ass Edomites too, okay? That were very difficult to govern. Poor Edomites are some of the hardest people to govern because they're just sicko freak weirdos, all right? The scum of white society, they like to call them, which we see everywhere. The political leaders of the Virginia colony struck up an answer to all these problems, and the answer plagues us to this day. Okay? And I found a scripture I wanted to read. Proverbs 29:10. The bloodthirsty hate the upright, but the just seek his soul. A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in till afterwards. If a ruler hearken to lies, all his servants are wicked. So the rulers of America, they created lies and they hearkened to them. And so everyone underneath them were completely wicked. Because now you believe to be a white man. Now you're calling yourself a black man. Oh, you're white, I'm black. I celebrate black history. Well, why don't they ever talk about this when it comes down to black history? This is the beginning of so-called black history because black was just created. That's brand new. Just like how being a white person was just created. This is the point that the elder Malcolm mentioned, but I still haven't seen that video. I gotta find it, but here it is for you, brothers. I believe this was it. The Virginians legislated a new class of people into existence, the whites. They gave the whites certain rights and took other rights from blacks. White, as a language of race, appears in Virginia around the 1680s and seems to first appear in Virginia law in 1691. And thus, whiteness, and to agree as well, blackness, was born in the mind of America. Hold on one second. So, Babylon, man. Babylon is the originator of all these wicked ass philosophies, and that's why you see the scriptures always talk about the wine of the wrath of fornication. This is Nahum 3:1. Woe to the bloody city! It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. The noise of the whip and the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. That's right. Woe to the bloody city! America is the bloody city. It is full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. And that's your whole plan. This place is full of lies and robbery. You got this land through what? Through robbery. And then to justify that robbery, you used lies. And the prey departeth not. You didn't let us go, man. You kept us in as subjects, okay, at the bottom of your caste system that you created based upon lies. And we're reading about it. So it says here, it appears in Virginia around the 1680s, and it seems to first appear in Virginia law in 1691. So that's 16. That's about 400 years ago. 300 years ago. Right, 1991. A lot of brothers were born that year, 1991. That's about 300 years since then. Now we're in 2019. Okay. That's a little bit over 300 years here. 320 years. God damn, it's already 2019. 20, 11, 9, 29, 329 years. God damn. That's not long ago. That's only about 4 or 5 generations. Okay? And you goddamn devils want to pass it off like, oh, that was a long time ago, man. As of the 18th century, whites could not be permanently enslaved as they sometimes had been before. And black slaves could never work their way to freedom. The whites were told this was because God had made the blacks inferior to whites, which is a fucking bull-faced lie. God never said that. The Most High never said that. And where'd you get that from? You twist the scriptures up. Just as the whites were inferior to the superior classes that owned property. Yeah, because you had Edomites that looked down upon you Edomites as inferior, and they still do. Those people, those superior classes that owned the property back then, their families are still around controlling shit. Okay? They didn't go and disappear, man. They didn't just relinquish all the wealth that they got from our slave labor and our genocide. They accumulated that wealth, and they kept it. And they subjected us with wicked-ass laws and lies. And they continue to do such. If you don't believe that, you're better off just, you're better off just getting addicted to fentanyl or some shit, man. There's no point for you. Because back in these days, these people had a lot of uprisings. But now it's at the point where the Most High is going to force it on you to uprise. He's going to make you starve. Okay, he's going to bring grave injustices. We see it everywhere. But we're proclaiming it now, so when it does go down, you other people that decline the words of the heavenly Father, you're going to be getting judged. But let me keep reading. It's worthwhile to remember that they didn't give whites political rights. All right? They didn't give Edomites political rights. They didn't give whites the vote. That would not happen then, nor at the Revolution and Independence. Yeah, so Edomites, the whole thing about all men were created equal, this and that, you couldn't really vote unless you owned property. That was a law. And so whites didn't get the vote until presidency of Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson, you know why he did that? Because he was a low-level Edomite, man. He was a low-level Edomite, Indian killer, slave owner. But he had a spirit on him, okay? He had a spirit of establishing Edomites as superiors. He was about that action, so to speak, okay? And he went against his handlers, the global banking elite, okay? He went against them because that was well known that who was running shit. They all knew it was the Rothschilds, okay? That's why he started creating a treasury and getting off the what do they call it, the Bank of the United States, the second Bank of the United States. He got rid of that shit, and since he got rid of it, the global banking elite been trying to establish a new bank, and it wasn't successfully passed until I believe 1914, the Federal Reserve, or 1913, if I'm not mistaken. Property owners both of land and slaves were the only ones who could vote. And who owned land and the slaves? You Edomites, okay? You ruling class Edomites. And your descendants are still here in America. You didn't disappear. Okay? Those property owners, those people, they didn't disappear. You know what they did? They established universities. They established hospitals. Okay, they created little secret Masonic clubs together. And they're here today, controlling things. That included black land and slave owners. Because you actually had black people that owned land, and you had black people that were slave owners. Okay, until various states passed laws in the 18th century to take their franchise away. Yeah, and what was that franchise? Their right to vote, their right to own land. I'm like, okay, we gotta lay it down. If you're black, you can't own anything. This plan worked gorgeously. It broke all efforts of the majority of the people, African or European, to fight for civil and political rights in America against a landed class that ruled everything. Right? And the landed class that ruled everything, they still rule everything. It reduced a portion of the people to the state status of the Negro slave and gave the poor, but now white people, a precious and entitled inch to stand, Salakia, to stand above the permanently enslaved on the social ladder. Yeah, so that was a little goodie, a little lie that helped these people feel good, man. These Edomites, because Esau, man, he doesn't really need too much. He just needs someone to abuse, to freely abuse, and you did that. The next thing the politicians did sealed the deal. They paid poor whites a bounty for runaway slaves, and often made them overseers for slaves, turning every poor white in America into a prison guard against people who had once been neighbors and allies. And that's exactly what the state government did, the government of America, okay? And that's why people are demanding reparations now. You've never ever gone all the way back into your records and say, you know what, we need to go back and forgive ourselves for all the wickedness that we've done against the so-called black man, Latino man, and Native American man. But you're not going to do that. Why? Because you're the devil the Bible speaks of. Okay? And the same thing you did, you gave poor whites bounties for Gadites as well, here in California, more specifically. But all over the country. I'll bring this up. This is like the two platforms. Negro suffrage, right? They didn't want you. They're saying this guy Greery, he's for the Negro, but this guy Clymer, he's for the white man. So who are you gonna vote for? Are you gonna vote for the guy that's for the white man, or are you gonna vote for the guy that's for the Negro? And this Reconstruction era election poster is free of any content that is not in articulate blind fear of black people. So in Reconstruction, they were fighting for rights of the Negro to vote, and they didn't want them to vote. Why? Because Esau's gonna lose power. Esau's all about keeping his power, man. If this seems like a crazy way for people to behave, it's important to think about what was believed about the natural order of things back in the 1600s. Nowadays, we don't really think about class as a thing that often, and certainly not a natural thing. But when white and black people were conceived, the idea of class was literally believed to be handed down from God. Aristocracy flowed from the divine right of kings and their blood, and by their blood or elevation. Right, because the original caste that was created in Europe, okay, going back into the 1600s during the time of King James, was something that we created. The Israelites, we created that when we took over the Holy Roman Empire. We started creating a caste system based upon whether you're an Israelite or whether you're a heathen. And we said, hey, God gave us this right of a king. And how can you source that divine right of being a king? You have to be an Israelite. You have to go into the scriptures. Okay, it says that the Lord made the world for our sake. So it's for the Israelites, it's not for the rest of you guys. And so in order to be that high up, you have to be favored by those kings or be part of that blood lineage. Okay, this is a picture I saw right here, right? It says Irish Iberian, Anglo-Teutonic, That's a straight up Edomite, and the Negro. And look how they portray the Irish Iberian. He actually kind of looks like a Jake, man. Because he is a Jake. It says the Iberians are believed to have been originally an African race who thousands of years ago spread themselves through Spain over Western Europe. The remains are found in the barrows or burying places in sundry parts of these countries. The skulls are of a prognathous type. They came to Ireland and mixed with the natives of the south and west, who themselves are supposed to have been of low type and descendants of savages of the Stone Age, who in consequence of, I don't know what that word says, that's real blurry, who in consequence of from the rest of the world had never been just competed in the healthy struggle of life and thus made way according to the laws of nature for superior races. So Esau said, hey man, this guy has he's a Negro blood in him. These Irish people actually, they knew the history of Ireland going all the way back then. Yet this white man, he acts like he don't know that, man. Well, I didn't know that. You people are because this place is full of lies. We just read about it. This is Job 13:4. But ye are forgers of lies. You're all physicians of no value. Yeah, this is a forge of a lie, man, that we're presently living in today. Because a lot of Irish people, yeah, they heard about it like, oh yeah, we're the niggas of Europe. But they don't know the deep history of it. They still claim themselves as white people. Hey, the Irish were enslaved too. It wasn't just black people. Nigga, you were black. Nigga, those were black Irish. Dumbass. It said racism drafted every intellectual endeavor to reinforce the idea of intrinsic superiority to the upper class European. When Darwinism came along, it was immediately adapted as a justification for exactly the same message that had been presented as the will of the Most High previously. Okay. So this is proof of that these Edomites, you so-called white people, you red Hebrew Edomites, you know who the Israelites are, okay? You know it's us. You know it's the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, and also those people from parts of Europe who were controlled and taken over by so-called black people, Israelite men. It says low type and descendants of savages of the Stone Age. Yeah, because I believe the original inhabitants of Hibernia, before they changed that name to Hibernia, were the Picts, the Druids, and those were actually Japhetic people. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, but I believe that is fact. Okay, like the dudes who created Stonehenge, those were actually Japhetic peoples. Okay. It says the poor were poor because the Most High so wished it. Keeping peasants in line and using them to their fullest was what the aristocracy was for. And the tactics that accomplished this were considered wise stewardship. Sometimes that meant concessions, and sometimes divide and conquer. But as long as you didn't have peasant rebellions, you were doing a good job. Yeah, because that was a form of control. They always say divide and conquer. So like, okay, if all these poor people, if they all can get together on a level, they're going to take us down. So the so-called white man, the red Hebrew Edomite, he created the division of race between white and black. Before that, during the Roman Empire, all these races, all these nationalities were living together. And they would get together and they would rise up against the ruling class. And the ruling class, even back then in those Roman times, weren't just based upon race. It was based upon a class. So you could have been a black, so-called black, really a man from the land of Israel that was living in Cappadocia, Greece, or a man whose fathers go back to Israel but was living in Carthage. Right? You could have been rich and you came up in the Roman Senate. You became part of that powerful elite. You became a general. But the people below you, the lower peoples, they would want to fight and overthrow you unless they knew that you were one of them. You came from the mud just like them. And that's what happened. when our people took over the Holy Roman Empire. The powerful were those chosen by... Oh, let me read this. This view of the world, never universal but powerful and prevalent, held on in one form or another for a very long time. It infected the views of the British, Spanish, Dutch, and French imperial masters all over. The powerful were those the Most High had chosen, and those in their power were chosen by God to be of use. While fainter, this idea is so strong it still leaks into the modern era in places like the atheological ideas of prosperity Christianity, in the frame of mind of aristocracy, and a divinely ordaining ruling class, such as plan to reorder people and make them pliant, was understood to be a move of genius blessed by God and King if it worked. This plan worked. In fact, it worked so well it became the blueprint for the next few centuries of colonization. Revised and spread all over the world, even beyond the conception of white and black. And here's Habakkuk 2 and... I might as well read it all. Habakkuk 2 and 8. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness, to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town by blood, and established a city by iniquity. And that's iniquity, okay? Because you took the nationalities that the Lord gave our people, and you created a new one. A new classification. A new category. And you not only used it to colonize and take over the world, you're using it still to this day, man, to keep people in a confused like state. But now we got the truth, and the truth is coming out. We're telling you, you're not black, you're not white, you're an Edomite, you're not black, you're a Hebrew Israelite, you're not a Indian, American Indian, you're a Gadite. Now these are things that are coming out now because we're at the end of times, we're at the last. And this article was written by a damn white woman, okay? A very well-written article, might I add. Let me keep reading back in Habakkuk. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, establish a city by iniquity. And who did that? None other than America, all right? And all the rest of your colonies and places that you control. Behold, it is not the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. And that's what you did. You did that by calling people black and white. That's a wicked philosophy. Creating the social constructs of race. That was created for you to control people, to leave them in confusion, and you force that upon them. If they didn't believe it, you put their ass to death, you whip it into them, you put it in the newspapers, you put it in your music. Okay, it took total control. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be covered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. That's right, and that shameful spewing is on your glory right now, man. Your glory is America. And America was established by none but wickedness, violence, lies, robbery, deceit, blasphemy, fornication. And you wonder why America's on a downward spiral, circle in the drain. Because the Most High wants to destroy this place, and he's destroying it from the inside out. And he's going to have the other nations rise up and destroy this place with thermonuclear missiles. And your shame is your glory now. One time you used to have Columbus parades. You can't do that no more. At one point in time, you used to have parties in blackface, KKK outfits, take pictures. You can't do that no more. Now you're being uncovered. For violence of Lebanon shall cover thee, and the spoil of beasts, which made them afraid, because of the men's blood, and for the violence of the land of the city, and all that dwell therein. What profit the graven image that the maker thereof hath graven it, the molten image, and a teacher of lies, that the maker of his work trusteth therein to make dumb idols. That's right. So you're a teacher of lies because you still try to continue that lie. Oh man, we gotta unite the black and the white. This or that. Okay, Black History Month. You push that every fucking February. So I can't wait for this month to end. Black History Month. Black History. Why don't you talk about how the white man created blacks? Ain't no damn such a thing. Salak. Ain't no such a damn thing. Okay, and if you're offended by me saying this because I'm not a so-called black, you're a buck out, man. The Most High's gonna kill your ass. All right, straight up. Just like my man on the, my man on the BART train. He's saying, God, Christ gonna kill y'all. He's straight up, man. That's a spirit. That's a spirit, man. The Lord's gonna come back and kill y'all. As the aristocrats and their successors traveled around the world through the colonial age, Europeans all over the world would find or define a group within the colonial territory and elevate it above the other groups, give it some privileges, though never enough to challenge the intruding rulers. In exchange for the slightly elevated status, the rulers would make those people do the colonial dirty work and usually keep them slightly more well off than their fellows. Over time, these slightly elevated people often tried to keep their European masters in power, even after the people realized how evil colonialism was, maintaining the system both to keep above their fellows and their out of fear of retaliation for the dirty work they've done. The most familiar contemporary cases of practice people recognize is the Belgian categorization, the Tutsis and Hutus, and the tragedy that still hangs over the arrangement of that over a century later. But really, the idea started in Virginia. That's right, it started in America and Babylon. While the perception of race riots is often black rioting, the worst and most frequent race riots were Edomites against Israelites. The worst such riot in U.S. history was the New York draft riot, which killed 119 blacks and scarred the city of New York forever. And I believe that they have a good rendition of this in the film Gangs of New York. Okay, because Esau didn't want to go fight that war, man. They didn't mind. They didn't mind. You know, those people that could claim to be white. They didn't mind that niggas were in slavery. Okay, they wanted to keep them there. And so when the Union called for a draft, the people in New York, they rioted, man. Like, no, we don't want to go fight them. The invented category of white people is still the largest case of this colonial strategy in the world. Whiteness was not always invented in opposition to chattel slavery, even in America. As the newly invented whites pushed west, they are reinvented in opposition to the existence of other people. Inconveniently on the land, the newcomers believed God had ordained them as their destiny, which is manifest destiny. The Monroe Doctrine. You actually put that down that the Most High gave you this land, and it's your job to go in and to civilize these savage peoples. And you use the Bible to do it. Hold on 1 second. Right, you use the scriptures to do it. But now you don't want nothing to do with the Bible. Why? Because it condemns everything you did. That you're a liar, you're a sinner, you're a freak. So like it. You're a freak, weirdo, demon. Straight up. Elsewhere, they were invented as the able administrators, the teachers and ministers, and God's own technocrats, both bettering and properly using the non-white world. Yeah. You made everybody that wasn't a white, Edomite, subject to you by claiming to be this, a white. That's a bunch of madness, man. Each invention of whiteness was a new premutation, but each one also hearkened back to the earth form of Virginia. The Most High made the whites to serve kings, and everyone else to serve whites. Today, corporations and the remains of colonial systems have reduced the vast majority of those in the arbitrary category of white people to chapter screws of global forced labor prison camp. And that's exactly what we live in, a global forced labor prison camp with Edomites in control. Okay, and then these low-level Edomites above you controlling you. Okay, and then where do they get that order? How God made whites to serve kings? Nah, man. There's only one king on the earth, and that's Yahweh Shai. Okay, and then his heirs, who are also princes of the power, Yasharallah. We're the kings. Yasharallah, prince of the power. So the Lord gave us that right. And everybody else, you're supposed to serve us. Not only Edomites, Moabites, Ammonites, Ishmaelites, all you other nations. Okay? Yeah, it says the great thing about the divide and conquer of creating white skin privilege is that you don't have to give people thusly bought off anything more. And American power structures did it. In places with black slavery, the whites suffer terribly. And that's what's happening again. You Edomites have always been super low. You're low lives. And your ruling elites, they don't give a shit about you, man. They actually find more use for Israelites than your bitch ass, man. That's why you hate us. That's why you want to lynch us. You want to kill us. You want to put us in prison. Okay, you want to call us a thug, a thief. When that's all you. You're projecting that onto us, man. All because of what? You got the little white skin privilege, red skin privilege. But that privilege is out the door, man. It's gone. There's no such thing as white privilege anymore. And I'll be the first one to say that, okay? The only ones with privilege are you elite Edomites. You everyday Edomites don't have no more white privilege, man. You're a villain. You're the super villain. You're evil. Everyone's looking at you, pointing the finger at you, hissing at you, man. There's a simple truth to American history for the majority of people who have ever been American. The worst black experience, the worst everyone else's experience, including Edomites. Yeah, the black experience, the worst for everybody else. But that's not happening right now, okay? Because our people are coming up, man. Especially this new generation of Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. They're coming up, and they're just ready to go out and just beat up Edomites, man, because they're weak, because they pussy. Yet you don't like that, man. Now you feel attacked. It's about good goddamn time, man. All these years you've been running around, how do you say, unchecked. Okay, beating the shit out of us, killing us, lying on us. Now it's time for you to go down, boy. Driving down on limiting black wages while always agreeable to whites, drove white pay lower than their European counterparts for most of our history. The labor movement that got its start in America took longer to make progress here, especially in terms of hours and working conditions. So yeah, the rest of the article. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna keep reading actually. Largely based employer. Okay. The labor movement that got its start in America took longer to progress here, especially in terms of hours and working conditions, largely because employers pitted whites against blacks or immigrant labor. And you're still doing that. You never changed. Splitting the movement. Civil and political rights in America only ever had to be better for whites than they were for blacks, preserving that furious sense of superiority that was the defining quality of Edomites. To this day, poor Edomites are the most intransigent racists left by an exploitive and violent system without education, access to food and medical care, or even the basic necessities of life in the developed world. It is this state their only precious possession is ideal whiteness. Virginian aristocracy blessed them with hundreds of years ago. Yeah, that's all you got, man. An idea of whiteness that's being destroyed in front of your eyes, man. That you're not white, okay? You never were white. You've always been the Edomite, the red Hebrew Edomite, the devil the Bible speaks of. and now you're coming to the end of your rulership. So privilege doesn't really matter for doesn't really work for people who have it, or at least not the way many people imagine it does. Some Edomite privileges are basic human rights, like the right to live where you wish and safety from your neighbors and the local police. Others shouldn't be privileges for anyone at all, like preferred medical treatment based on race. Edomite privileges is sold to whites, but is the socio-political equivalent of putting contains no arsenic on breakfast cereal box. Edomite folk have bought into the message tremendously. I mean, who wants a breakfast cereal with arsenic in it? Of course, the problem is there's no reason cereal, blah, blah, blah. So, that's pretty much it on what I wanted to get into. I'll put this in the description, all right, for brothers to go ahead and look at. And we're at the end of your Edomite supremacy, okay? People are waking up. Oh, I wanted to do this. This is from my ADOS, right, which is this thing called American Descendant of Slaves, is the newest designation for the tribe of Judah of the nation of Israel. Africa is an entire continent with many different languages, cultures, and experiences. ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves, came from West Africa and Europe, right? Because this guy was saying this. He's a non-believer, of course. You know what he's talking about? He don't believe in the scriptures. But he's super pro-black. Pan-African. Saturday vibes. To those calling themselves ADOS, like it or not, you from Africa. Like it or not, you from Africa. Just we are. Pan-Africanism, Pan-African. That basic knowledge. Why are people so bothered by ADOS? Are we not allowed to take care of ourselves politically and economically? Do Africans come to the U.S. to fight white supremacy or be a tool of it? And why are they so snooty? Why do they act indifferent? This argument is weak. Next. That's a good argument. This guy's weak. Because those Hamites and even other Israelites that come from West Africa, they come here and they reap all the benefits that you so-called black people here in America have suffered to fight for, man. And now you're the ones in the ghettos. Yet now, if you go to the Fillmore in San Francisco, the main people you see in there are heathens in the projects. You see Moabites up in there, and you see East Africans, Habesha, Ethiopians, who we know as Cushites. Okay, so this is a thing going on right now. Okay, and I told this dude responded to me. He said, "No, the ancestors already labeled us in the West, the African diaspora, not ADOS." The ancestors? What ancestors? Your ancestors were slaves, man. They didn't know. They were getting beaten up by Edomites. I just told you what happened. But here it is. I said the ancestors were Hebrew Israelites. What is his response to that? Nothing. Silence. Dead silence. So people, this is a thing that says large number of Jews were expelled from Portugal and taken to the coast of southern Guinea. That the island of St. Thomas, which is not more than 100 miles from the mainland, was populated by mulattoes descended from the Jewish exiles of an Anglo woman. So you had our people escaping Portugal and still knocking up a Edomite woman, right? Making a little mixed race babies. So you still had those people living up in Europe, North Africa, West Africa, but you had Hebrews, St. Thomas right here, the little island off the west coast of Africa. There's a map of Guinea. A number of Israelites in this area right here. And this is where the transatlantic slave trade came from. Mulatto Hebrews. Why is that written all the way back then, man? Why was that hidden from you? Hebrews and Gabon. The writer confirms that Gabon were most likely descended from black Hebrews. Gabon is located on the west coast of Africa like Guinea. Oh, who would have thought? Loango is located on the west coast of Gabon. And the Spirit has a lot of these guys from Gabon and Guinea. They're playing football, soccer at the highest level in Europe, in England, Germany. Why? Because they're Israelites, okay? Different from Africans. It was the missionaries that first noticed the people in Gabon and Luango were not just African Jews, but were different. Yeah, we're not. You can't. Pan Africanism is a fucking bullshit lie, man. The only niggas in America believe in. People in Africa ain't with that, man. They worried about their own ass. They ain't worried about niggas over here, and they never have and never will. And you, like the apostles always say, you care so goddamn much. Take your ass back to Africa, man. When we consider the evidence here, along with what we know about the transatlantic slave trade, which is that black people were taken from West Africa, here's a slave trade map to put the areas mentioned in perspective. So they took Israel from all these lands, the Brazil, the Dutch Caribbean, French Caribbean, Danish Caribbean, British Caribbean, British North America, Spanish America. And this is the volume. And the majority of that volume went to Brazil, of course. The more history we piece together, the more solid our position becomes. Every source starting from the 70 AD places Hebrews in Africa, and most sources after that place the Hebrews specifically on the west coast of Africa before the transatlantic slave trade. So this is common knowledge, man. Hey, the black Hebrews. But we're not black Hebrews. We're just Hebrew Israelites, okay? So with that, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shem Yahushai B'Shem Rakakadash. Double honors to our apostle and elder Great Millstone. And peace and salutation to all you buzz out there teaching us word, truth, and sincerity. And shalom until the next time. Death to the red Hebrew Edomite. You are not a white man. You are a red Hebrew Edomite. Okay? And our people, you're not black. You're the Hebrew Israelites. That was created in Virginia. Alright? That was a construct put in the law in Virginia. And then spread throughout across the universe, across the world. So, with that, I'm going to say shalom.